Today I'm going to be going over the differences between the Steven Mead model mouthpieces from Denis Wick. Stay tuned. What's going on, guys? Aaron here, helping musicians get better, faster through performances, educational videos, and product reviews. And again, today I'm going to be comparing the different model mouthpieces from Steven Mead by Denis Wick. So Denis Wick was nice enough to send me all 4 of the different Steven Mead model mouthpieces that they offer in a size 3. So for the past month or so, I've been able to swap back and forth between the mouthpieces and extensively play test them, as well as have my students play test them and go back and forth between the mouthpieces and try them out and get their impressions as well. So a huge thank you to Denis Wick for providing the mouthpieces for this video. Now, the Steven Mead mouthpieces have been in the conversation of euphonium mouthpieces and which one I should use for over 20 years now. But when you go onto the Denis Wick website, it's understandable that it can be a little bit daunting to see all these numbers and letters and what's the difference between U and X, and now there's an R, like what's the difference between all of these? Well, that's what I'm going to try to do in this video, is try to break that down and kind of condense and just give you general impressions, so maybe to help better inform you, for you to make a decision on which one of these Steven Mead mouthpieces might work best for you. There are 4 of them, and logic might dictate that the newest one is the best one, but I don't think these things are like sequels to each other. I don't think they work like that. I think each one kind of works to fit a certain player or a different scenario. I'm of the impression that there's no such thing as like a bad mouthpiece. It's just mouthpieces that don't work out for certain people or certain situations. It's the only part of the instrument that actually physically attaches to you. So it's just nice to be able to have all of these different options so that you can find, the glass slipper, or in this case, Steven Mead mouthpiece that fits or works best for you. So let's get into it. The OG, the original Steven Mead mouthpiece from Denis Wick. So like I said earlier, this thing was designed in 1995. It was one of the first mouthpieces to come out with euphonium in mind, as opposed to being a repurposed trombone mouthpiece. The instruments are different, not just because one has slides and one has valves, but also one's conical and one's not. So having a mouthpiece that operates with the instrument a little bit better made a lot of sense, and Steven Mead decided to tackle that situation. On Denis Wick's website, they describe it as having a very open backboard but maintaining the traditional funnel shape, and they describe it as the ideal soloist mouthpiece. And when I grew up, this was what I thought of when I thought of euphonium mouthpieces. This was what a lot of people were playing on a lot of the albums that I was listening to when I was very early in college. I think this mouthpiece is extremely comfortable, and I don't think it does too much or too little of one particular thing. The rim's not super sharp, it's also not super round, the backboard's not too big. It kind of fits this Goldilocks zone and will work for a lot of players. The one thing that I personally don't like about it is there's a lot of weight at the top or the front of the mouthpiece, so I feel like I have to push through a lot of extra metal at the beginning in order to get my sound to start. I will typically recommend this mouthpiece to anybody who's just looking to move from a generic mouthpiece or a stock mouthpiece that came with their instrument. If you're looking for a switch up and you're starting to get into the realm of like the professional mouthpieces that a lot of people are playing, I would look into this one, or at least have this one be in the conversation while you're looking for mouthpieces. It's an extremely versatile mouthpiece, and that's why I suggest it for anybody who's looking to dive into the world of professional euphonium mouthpieces. I would give this one a go. Now, fast forward from 1995 to 2006, and we get the Ultra Series mouthpiece. This mouthpiece is described as having a heavier outer shape and a more rounded cup with a sharper inner rim edge. And the back bore is also more open, so it's going to take more of your air, and they switch from the funnel shape to a more cup shape with this style mouthpiece. And the Ultra is actually heavier than the original, but the weight distribution is a little bit more even. So what I was talking about with like fighting it at the beginning, you don't have to do that so much. You're just getting the benefits of the weight of the mouthpiece throughout the entire thing, which the extra weight just kind of boosts tone a little bit more. But it, tends to be extra weight, extra metal is more that you have to push through, but because it's distributed in a way that it is, you don't necessarily feel it, especially right at the point of contact. And I find that my flexibility and my high range is a little bit easier to accomplish on this mouthpiece as opposed to the original, but it's definitely not as like pillowy comfortable as the original was. A lot of times with mouthpieces, you have to give up that nice comfort rim in order to get the flexibility and the range. It's the give and take with that situation. So it's noticeable on here, and also the bigger back bore is going to be noticeable. It's going to be more greedy with your air, so if you can't feed it, it's going to give you a hard time. So moving from the original to the Ultra is a big change. The other Ultra mouthpieces that we'll talk about in a minute, it's not as big of a shift when you move from one to the other. Between these two, it's a bit more noticeable, but even though these have such a big difference between the way each one feels, I would actually suggest both of these to the same person. If you're looking to get out of stock mouthpieces and you're looking to go into, professional mouthpieces, both of these are worth a shot, because it's not about this one being not as good as this one or this one being better than this one. These are both really good mouthpieces. They're gonna serve a lot of the same purposes, but it's which one feels best to you. These two were the ones that my younger students who haven't quite moved off of like the normal 6.5, these two mouthpieces were the ones that they tended to lean towards because it was just kind of like a good base for them. Whereas the other two mouthpieces are gonna be variations on essentially what this is. So speaking of the other ones, we jump forward a couple years and Steven Mead comes out with the Steven Mead 3X. Now, profile-wise, it looks very, very similar to the 3U, but there are some differences. Denis Wick notes on their website that you should perceive a more brilliant sound than the original SMU, and the cup has been rounded a little bit more to have a more defined bowl, which should give you more tone and a better upper register response. It also has a slightly sharper inner edge of the rim, which should give you a better increased articulation response. And my thought process with this is, coming off of the Ultra, it does have a sharper rim. You're gonna notice that, but it's not jarringly so. It's not gonna feel really sharp or painful to you. For me, it mostly felt like the rim itself was a little bit more flat, so I was feeling the inside of the rim edge a little bit more, making contact with my face. I feel like it's just a slight difference from the SMU, and you're gonna feel a little bit of a boost in tone. You're also gonna be able to play a lot bigger and louder, especially higher up. I even noticed just in the sound of my buzz, when I buzz with the two different mouthpieces, this one projects a lot more than the U did. It sounds bigger, it projects more. The higher range is going to be a little bit easier, though you sacrifice a little bit, I think, in the lower range with it. So if you're making a good sound with the 3U, I would suggest maybe giving the 3X a try out. It's just an enhanced version of it. It'll change a little bit, but you won't feel a huge difference. So this one, I feel like it's just kind of an altered form of the 3U. So if you're trying out the 3U and you're not quite sold on it, or like you're like, I like this, but I want to be able to have a little bit bigger of a tone, this might be the one for you. And lastly, but most recently, we got the SM-XR. So Wick's notes on this one, they say it has a rounder rim, a shallower cup, and you should also feel a increased comfort from it. What I noticed mostly is it has a big difference in the feel right when it hits your face. Because the rim is more round, you feel the edge of the rim a little bit more, but the back bore stays the same. To me, right off of the bat, this one is my favorite. It just feels really good. A lot of things work out really well on it. It sounds really good. It's really comfortable. Even though you can feel the rim more, it doesn't feel sharp, which is really weird with a mouthpiece. Normally if you feel the rim, it's sharp and it's painful. You're not gonna have a lot of endurance. That's not the case with this one. I'm actually very tempted for this to actually become my new full-time mouthpiece. I highly recommend this, especially for experienced players and you're just looking for a new mouthpiece, maybe a boost, or you want to try out the newest thing. But I would also recommend it for anybody who might be on a smaller rim, maybe a 6 or a 5, and you want to jump to a 3, you just kind of want to bypass 4 altogether and you just want to go to a bigger mouthpiece. This is going to accommodate you a little bit more because of the way the rim is. It's going to be less jarring for you. Obviously it's going to be bigger. You're going to have an adjustment period, but I feel like this is going to be more comfortable right off the bat than going to any other mouthpiece that's bigger. Now, the XR is my favorite. I love this mouthpiece, but I've also played all the other ones for a very long time, and I recommend them to my students. And even though this one's my favorite, when I surveyed all my other students and kind of figured out which one was their favorites, it varied wildly. So don't go just off of me. I would suggest trying them out, but this one fit with a lot of my more accomplished, like the college level students, a lot of the older people. They really dug the XR. Overarching synopsis, the Steven Mead and the Steven Mead Ultra, I would suggest to anybody who is looking to break into professional mouthpieces and get their first professional mouthpiece and is looking for a base level to kind of use for a while and be able to compare all other professional mouthpieces with. Now with the X and the XR, if you're a big fan of the U, but there's some give and take, some things you don't like about the U, I would try both of these different mouthpieces because maybe one might work for you a little bit better than the other. And also the XR is going to be fantastic for anybody who wants to move from a smaller mouthpiece over to a slightly bigger mouthpiece. This will accommodate that pretty well. So I'm really lucky and very thankful to Denis Wick for providing me these 4 mouthpieces and being able to try them side by side and really kind of get my impressions on all of them. But that actually does lead me to my question of the day. If any of you have actually tried out any of these mouthpieces, or maybe you're currently playing on these mouthpieces, I'm curious what your impressions are and what your experience has been. So go ahead and leave that in the comments down below. And if you want to go ahead and snag one of the mouthpieces that I tried in this video for yourself, I'll leave a link to where you can purchase one of those in the description down below as well. But anyway, that's all I've got for you on this one. Again, my name is Aaron Campbell, reminding you to be happy but never satisfied. I'll see you next time.